Good day, everyone. Hope we're all doing well. Selby, you there, mate?
Guesty, I'm here, mate. How are you?
How you doing, Selby? Good yourself?
Oh, yeah. Good.
Hear us all right, mate?
Good yourself?
What's that? Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Man.
Awesome, mate. Awesome.
Perfect. Tim, mate, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Good to watch the game. A couple of good. I watched the Carlton one and two good games of footy. I thought to watch over the last couple of days, which was good.
Beautiful. Well, mate, we're all ready to go. YouTube's up and about, Twitter space up and about, so let's get on the way.
Awesome, mate. Let's do it. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone, to the AFL Fantasy Fanatics round review. We are recording live on Twitter on Monday, the 12th of June, after the completion of round 13 of the AFL Fantasy season. I am your host and AFL Fantasy Fanatic, Tim Guest. You can find me on Twitter at TimGuestAU. Joining me, as always, is Bales DT. Bales, mate, how was your week? Where are you ranked? And who was your plus and minus three?
Tim, so we're going to get straight into my -3, mate, but not waste any time. Tim English, mate, absolute joke. Wouldn't speak English on bloody Friday night as my captain. Oh, what a disaster that was. VC Goulden to English. I thought it might have been a good idea to go a little bit different with a couple of players with a big ceiling, but unfortunately it didn't quite par for me. So -3 to him. But my score, I just had to get that out. Sorry about that, Tim. But my score, 1935, saw me drop about 1,400 spots. So considering I had a poor captain, it's not the worst that I dropped, not too much. So I've planned my buys, so I'm hoping that my ranking will go straight back up in 14, 15 with hopefully 20 plus in both the next couple of weeks. So, but my +3, normally I give it to a high-scoring player, and I'll leave. I'm sure that my boy may be a guy that you look at, Tim. But I'm actually going to give my +3 to the duo of George Wardlaw and Matthew Johnson. When I need a couple of other players to stand up that maybe I didn't necessarily expect to be in my best 18, George Wardlaw, who looks like an absolute gun of a player, is going to be a star of the comp with his 97, and Matt Johnson looking really good for Selby's Dockers. So he's just looking really good, and only 62% game time, but just a great player. So that's how I end up going this week.
Sure, mate. Sure. Well, look, I think being the easiest of the buy rounds is probably not. Lots of people had lots of players, right? So there's probably not a huge disbursement in scores. So probably that's why you didn't get hurt too much in terms of the ranks.
Yeah,
but it also would.
I was ranked 33,753 at the time of recording for the week. So a few people went a fair bit higher.
Yeah, cool. All right, no dramas. All right, well, I'm going to quickly run through my scores. So I ended up with a 2040, which I'm pretty happy with, which has moved me up just a little bit, I think. I can't remember where I was last week, but around the same mark, about 605 now. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to give my +3. I'll give it to your boy, Bales. I think you had a bit of a tough run, mate. So let's give him the kudos he deserves. 124, had the C on Lairdy, so but could have gone probably a lot higher. They rested him late in that game, so that's what it looked like to me anyway. So could have gone much bigger, but anyway, my -3, Tommy Green, 73. I think his score might have even dropped off for me, so I'm just not good enough when he's my second highest price player or something like that. He's right up there. He's definitely my M2 anyway. So
yeah, I think he dropped for me as well.
Yeah. Well, let's turn to our guest, guy that doesn't really need too much introduction. The GOAT, Selbs, mate. Thanks for joining us from Moreira's Magic, mate. I would ask you how your team went, how you ranked, but obviously you're in retirement now. But mate, how's things going over at Moreira's Magic for the year?
Good, mate. Going well, Guesty and Bales. It's been an interesting season of footy and fantasy footy. But we've seen some really good value players go well. Some high-end players come to the fore in recent times. But it just feels like this year more than any, I think, with that new interpretation for the tackles and then the concussion that seems like every week there's either a forced trade or bullet to teams. And if not that, then a flow-on effect of who's going to take that role. So certainly a lot to discuss week to week, as you guys certainly know with the stuff you guys do.
Yeah, well, obviously, probably another big one we've got to talk about when we get to the game is Sick Dog. Looks like he's going to get rubbed out again. Probably a lot of owners that had held him, so that's really going to hurt those people. But yeah, well, let's get into the games anyway. So firstly, we'll kick it off with Sydney defeating St Kilda by 14 points at the SCG. Just a couple of points to note about the game. Dan Butler obviously got rubbed out for one match, but St Kilda intend to contest that, so we'll see what happens there. And Nick Blakey was subbed out with a head knock, but apparently he's clear of any concussion protocol, so he'll be free to play next week. But Bales, over to you for the players, mate.
Yeah, so Ryan Marshall kicking the weekend off for a lot of coaches with a 129, and if you were lucky enough to have the VC on him, that was a pretty nice score to take straight away, first game of the weekend. Brad Crouch, 123, so Holmesy's boy. Selby, do you reckon Crouchy is an option for coaches, a bit cheaper? We've seen he can go 110, 115 for a prolonged period. Is it more that because of Jack Steele maybe struggling a bit at the moment, or is Brad Crouch an option maybe for a coach to have a look at?
Yeah, it's weird that Brad Crouch comparison, because early in the year when he was getting big numbers when Steele was out, but we saw back in the last 5 games, he was the highest averaging player in fantasy, and obviously Steele was around then as well. So it's not like he can't score alongside Steele. He's just, I don't know, watching him to the eye, sometimes he looks like he's hungry for the footy and demands it like Dacos, and other times he looks a bit disinterested. So I know Holmesy's been right at it more than anyone, but the ups and downs which come with him. But he's now at that price point where he is cheap as chips, and you look at the splits up the year's first half, second half, there's always someone who goes up 20 points per game in the second half of the season. He's a candidate. So I guess he is an option.
Yeah, I've got my eyes on him personally for this week's my upgrade. Sinclair 107 was good for those coaches that jumped on him, and I'm sure there'll be some other coaches looking at him this week with that Ryan Clark sort of tag game out the way. Jack Steele, 88, had a poor first half with only 21 points, but ended up with a 67-point second half. Tim, do you think he's an option after seeing that second half? It seemed like he got a bit of a bollocking from Ross the boss at halftime and came out well and looked a bit better in the second half. But are you still a bit concerned and may want to wait until you see a big score pop, or would you be maybe happy to jump on him a week earlier?
He's someone we definitely want to look at. I'm sure everyone is dying to hear what I think of Jack Steele, but I'd really like to know what the GOAT thinks, because I think, there's going to be a few players looking to move that way. A bit of a zag, especially during the bye rounds. But yeah, what do you reckon, Selbs?
Yeah, well, as I said, there's always players who pop in the second half, and he was a prime candidate because I think at the start of the year I had him being the highest scoring player in the comp, and then obviously had his injuries the first half, the knee and the collarbone. So I thought, week off, here we are. We'll see him get back to his best. But I actually messaged Xavier watching him run out to even toss the coin at the start of the game. He was even hobbling when he went to toss the coin. He didn't look right. So I messaged him and said, mate, he had his knee strapped, which wasn't a good sign. The good sign was the shoulder wasn't strapped, but he's still not 100%. But that also shows his scoring power, a high tackling player, which he is. For him to score an 88 on a looking lame in a weird game at the SCG, we had a 21-point half, shows his potential. But I think I'd like to see him pass the eye test first, which he didn't even pass in the second half, to be honest with you, despite the big score.
Didn't even pass the eye test to flip the coin by the look of
it. Yeah, he's not great, but hopefully he can respond. I jumped on him, 6 weeks ago, and hasn't been good since. Gordon 83, thanks Errol for that good VC, but it was more down to, I think, Horse Longmire. I just don't quite understand why they were playing forwards in Papley and Heaney, who we've wanted for years in the midfield, him in the midfield, and leaving Errol, who's played well in the midfield when he's got the opportunity. He played for, I think he had 6 CBAs and the other guys had a lot more. I just didn't quite get that. So I'm not blaming Goulden for that one. I'm blaming John Longmire. So always destroying their fantasy sides. Sheldrick 79 be a popular downgrade option this week if coaches, if he's named for St Kilda Sydney this week. And Windhager is the potential downgrade option that will be hopefully named for St Kilda this week, who I jumped on a week early because I had Johnson already in. Put up a solid score, so he looks all right. So, Tim, we'll move to the Bulldogs Port game.
Awesome, mate. Well, Western Bulldogs defeated by Port Adelaide, by 22 points at Marvel Stadium. So Port are now 10 on the trot. No real injuries or suspensions to kind of talk about from this game. So straight over to you.
Yeah, well, I'll bunch these two together. So Zach Butters has been amazing the last probably 6, 7, 8 weeks, and I know that I'll ask obviously Selby this. I know he put it in the insights a few weeks ago from Mirror's Magic that about Butters being a very good option back then, and he's proceeded to be a very, very good option. And if I'm not mistaken, he's probably the second or third best forward since that time, and would be number one probably for them for Taranto, but. Butters and then also McRae, so 129. So they both got the round 15 buy selves. Do you think that both are options? McRae obviously a bit cheaper and Butters probably a bit expensive, but do you like them both post buy? Selby, you there? I think we might have lost him,
I can't hear him either, mate. Keep going through the players and we'll see if we get him back.
That's right, it's all good. Yeah, I'll move to the other players here. But Bont, Tim, I know we're both owners. Another 116 was very, very good once again. So we're very happy to own him.
Another great score. Really having him sitting in the midfield, and glad I went him over the other Bulldogs at the beginning of the season.
Yep, exactly right. Caleb Daniel, another 110. Post buy, do you reckon he could be in the mix for those top 6 defenders?
I'm not sure we got Selbs back. Why don't we go back to him?
Yep. No, we'll see. Selby, you got us, mate?
Just on mute, mate.
There we are. Gotcha.
Beautiful. We'll quickly go back to the Butters and McRae combo, Selby. Don't know if did you hear what I was saying about those guys?
Yeah. I was saying we've got a very good forward batch this year where even with Taranto and Dunkley and Gould, like some of the numbers they're putting up, we're trying to find our top 8 defenders, and these forwards are actually scoring better than the bottom end of the midfielders, which doesn't normally happen. So both Butters and McRae I've currently got as top 6 forwards. I think Butters is very fully priced at the moment, but we can probably afford to pay fully priced post buy. So yeah, you'd want them. I think want them both in your team at one point in the way home.
Yeah, agreed. And then I was just talking about Caleb Daniel, another 110. Do you see him being a potential top 6 defender the way he's going at the moment?
I didn't put him in there on the weekend when I put my rolling 22 or best 22 out. Don't know what it is, but I just can't trust him or Bevo or the role or him as a player. So as it stands, I don't. But yeah, you just got to look at those ownerships, particularly around the top, and that's where things always get spicy back after the year. That players like this pop, and they're very lowly owned at the top. And if you can get on someone like that, that's where you can make some inroads. But yeah, as it stands, I'd find it very hard to trade into him.
Yeah, I do see that sentiment where I couldn't quite trust him, but he's been very, very good. And so is Connor Rosie, another 106, so just ticking on those good scores, being a bit overshadowed by Butters at the moment, but just quietly getting his job done at the moment. It's probably a good thing for him that Butters is doing so well, because the tag won't necessarily just go to Rosie now. To be potentially Butters will be copping some attention back half of the year, I dare say. Bailey Dale 99, just got it done again. Probably he's got the buy in round 15. Probably not looking at him as an option. We're trying to look at people come off their buy, but for coaches, be a very good score there. Now Bailey Smith, Tim, 81. Can he be traded by coaches with that heavy round 15 buy, because he's been a bit disappointing ever since Trelaw's really been back?
It's interesting because I think a lot of coaches would have traded, maybe like myself, Zeeble last week, trying to clear out some of those round 15 players. Maybe I know some people moved Sheasel. I know I was probably maybe looking at moving Sheasel, but obviously after we'll talk about that game later. But yeah, there's probably some other candidates out there now that people will be looking to get off. Bailey Smith could be one of them, but look, it's probably you probably typically want to wait until he's by.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, but I think he's one of those guys. If you've got too many premiums, you can probably move him on, because I just don't think he's going to be that top 6
it's all going to
forward.
depend on what you can do with the cash and what your buy structure is looking like.
Yeah, exactly right. English 76. It's one poor game. He wasn't speaking English that game, but he'll be bouncing back and he'll be fine. It was one poor score.
Look, I don't want to. This is not me toot my own trumpet, but I do remember in the past that Scotty Lycett was a really tough matchup for rucks. And while we have rated Port Adelaide as easy for rucks this year, it's primarily because he's been out of the side, or he's been, quite clearly lame and carrying something. So That was kind of my red flag about English on the Friday spaces. But, it might be just something for coaches to watch out for moving forward.
Yeah. I think that is a good point there. Dylan Williams, 65. He can go this week potentially, but he can also go around 15 with that bye. He's been a very good cash cow. And then Josh Sinoni, 24. He likely won't be there next week because he was very, very quiet. So I dare say he may make way. So there you go. That's it from that game. Till move on to the
Hawks got over Brizzy by 25 points at the MCG. Their hoodoo continues there. Now, of course, we just mentioned before about James Sicily being referred straight to the tribunal for a tackle on Hugh Cluggage. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes out with there. Cluggage was obviously concussed and took no further part in the game. So he'll probably miss as well. And then Daniel Rich was injured. I think it was a shin, and then Bruce copped a corky as well.
Yeah, I know. I feel a bit bad for the Warren Dog and Roy. I think both of them jumped on Rich, and a few coaches did as that underpriced defender. And unfortunately, it looks like it may be a forced trade depending on if he misses time. But Josh Dunkley's really been the Dunkley we want to see with 145 points of late. So he's been very, very good. Sicily 130, but suspended for probably 3 or more games. So he's a forced trade there. Lockie Neal, Selby. So 124 was talked about as that underpriced option. Surprisingly took a lot of marks on the weekend as well. Are you more confident with him heading into the back half of the year as that underpriced option that could push the top 8 mids, or do you still see him a little bit off those top 8?
Yeah, career high marks was eye-catching, but they lost the game, and I don't think the coach would want him taking 14 uncontested marks in the game. They'd want him winning the clearances, which they got smashed in. So normally his style of footy is not those high marks. There's a lot more handballs inside, and he doesn't get those big 120-plus ceiling scores. So I think he is underpriced. I don't know what was happening early in the year, getting used to Dunkley in the system or whatever it was, but I think he's going to outperform what he's priced at. But I think he might just be a step below the top 8.
Yeah, if you had to pick between maybe a popular combo for coach this week, would be Crouch or Lockie Neal. Have you got a preference out of those two?
Yeah. It depends where you're sitting. If you want to take a punt, it's definitely Crouch with his low ownership. The safe bet's Neal, given his higher ownership, plus knowing that he's their best player, he's a star of the comp, that he's always going to be around the mark. Whereas, as I said, Crouch sometimes, who knows what he's going to do week to week, and even what Ross, the boss, is going to do with that structure and system of St Kilda. As you know, Lockie Neal's going to be that prime midfielder, and he's underpriced. So for me, it's a Lockie Neal. But if you want a bit of a point of difference, Crouch has shown he's got a higher ceiling at times than Neal, and he's cheaper.
Yeah. Tim, have you got a preference out of the two just quickly before we move on?
Well, I brought in Neal this week. After the spaces, I was going to bring in Brayshaw all week until we had those spaces on Friday afternoon. So I thought he was underpriced. I mean, looking on the Moreira's Magic website, I could see that he was priced at 99. I figured that was underpriced. That was a pretty safe bet to bring in, leaving me a significant amount of cash for this week.
Yep. Beautiful. All right, well, we'll move on to the other players here. Dylan Moore, is he post-buy option at all, Selby?
Oh, it's a tough one. With so many good forwards, which we have, I don't think he is. He was other forwards of the preseason. His scoring was as good as the rest in the back half of last year, and he was probably left behind a bit when we should have talked about the big 6, and he's the one who hasn't made that midfield transition. And while his scoring is up and he's playing a bit higher up the ground, he's still not their prime choice inside mid. So if there were no other options, if we didn't have a year with McRae and Butters and Rosie and Taranto and Dunkley, then maybe. But I think we've got too many good options in there to take a punt on someone who plays a high half forward role.
Yeah, got one CBA for the game. One.
Yeah. Will Day got the bye this week. Tim, is he an option that potentially could be traded?
Yeah, I think players have been looking to move off him for a couple of weeks. Obviously, he's had a few tough weeks in terms of tags and things like that. So, 98, bit of a bounce back. But, he certainly might be one of those players that people are looking to move. Although we might be a little bit, I don't know, people might be a little bit short on defenders. So maybe he's worthwhile holding.
Yeah, Selby, what's your opinion on Will Day? Still got the role, just the scores. Like, he got 98, which is solid, but scores of late haven't quite been there. Are you a fan of holding him, or is he a guy that you'd look to move on?
Yeah, I think Guess you nailed it with the structure. So if you need the extra number next week, then definitely hold him and then look to trade in the trades leading into round 16 if you don't like him, because those extra numbers can easily, like, we were very fortunate this week that coaches were dropping off 85s, 75s, 80s off their best 18. Normal bye weeks, when there's 6 teams on the bye, you'll be having 40s and 50s and forced to play these rookies. So the extra numbers are going to see their value in the next couple of weeks. I think Day's underperformed how he's looked to the eye. Like, he's played well, he's just obviously copped attention and hasn't put it all together yet. But maybe that's because it's his first year in the midfield, and it might be all year until he starts putting it together. It might be a next year big breakout. But I'm a fan of, well, I own him in my super coach, and I'm definitely going to hold for at least that round 15 bye, where, as you said, Jesse, those defenders are pretty light on.
Yeah, I agree. Warple, 80. He's been very serviceable for coaches, but I think he's sort of that player that is perfect to be moving on at his bye. If you can go him to a Neil or a Crouch or even a Brayshaw, if you didn't jump on him or Sarong, it's a good move. Ashcroft, 74. Not a bad score. I think coaches will probably still have to hold through the buys just with him already on his bye, but 74 is not too bad, and he can service you through the buys. You can move on. Same with Wilmot with a 68. That was a nice score as well. To put in there. Some coach would have had that drop out, but very solid for him. Dev Robertson, just a name to keep an eye on for coaches. 67. If he holds his spot, he's potentially a bit of a guy that you could consider about that 300k mark if we don't get rookies. But if we get a Sheldrick, then maybe not, maybe have to consider him. Then Mitchell, Seamus, and then Weddle, 64 and 61 respectively. They potentially can be moved on if you need the numbers in defence with all those guys on bye. And we mentioned before, Rich was injured on 52. So we'll move to the next game, Tim.
Adelaide defeating West Coast by 122 points at Adelaide Oval. Look, key forwards against West Coast. There's only one better matchup in the league, and that is Rucks against West Coast. But yeah, Jake Waterman was out with illness. Chesser came in for him, which added another green dot to my field, which was good. And then Foley injured a hamstring also.
I was going to quickly say as well, it wasn't exactly, even from a Crows point of view, it would have been a little bit better if it was a bit closer. But the Big Tex, 166 with 10 goals. So I picked him up in a draft side off the waivers. So I was very happy with that big score, and congrats to him for these 10 goals. Rory Laird, Tim, you brought him in last week 124. You put the skipper on him. So you would have been pleased that he bounced back to form on the 124 after a poor one last week.
Averaging just over 100 for me, mate. Still got to lift his
mate.
Nah, joking. Nah, very happy. Sure. Very happy this week.
Yep. Dawson, 105. It was funny. I brought him in this week as I was quite light in round 14, so I was happy to bring him in. But yeah, I always criticised Dawson a little bit and said he kicks the ball too much when he probably has a handball option, whereas he decided he wanted to handball every time he got on the weekend. 20 handballs of his 32 touches, but he'll be still D1 or D2, so he's still good. Now, there's 2 interesting ones, Selby, so I'll go through the 2 of them. So Ben Keys with a 99. Midfield usage was up again with the 3rd most CBAs for the Crows with 54%. And then the other one on the other side, Elliot Yeo with a 95. So I dare say Keys would be a target, but is Yeo also a target potentially post their round 14 buys?
Yeah, I think both post buys for teams who haven't got the cash gen this year and need to get someone, because as we've seen at their best, Keys can score in line with the top 6 forwards, and Yeo can score in line with the top 6 defenders, which is what you need from your trade-in targets around this time, knowing that most good teams at the top with the cash gen will be trading in a premium. So if you take a punt on a mid-pricer early in the year, it works well because you're going to get the cash gen and fast-track your team. But this time of year, you're going to be confident they will score on those levels. And yeah, we've seen enough the last couple of weeks that maybe those 2 can.
Yeah, I'm very keen on Keys myself. Post buy, probably go tag Dacos, but he was good again. And same with Yeo. Rob, for those coaches out there with a 94, Pedler and Jinby, the 2 rookies with 71, they can both be moved on at their buy this week. Dom Sheed, 52. Unfortunately, I think he can probably also get moved on just with the sort of inconsistencies at the moment, unfortunately, with that West Coast midfield. Ryan Marrick, post-buy rookie, and a handy's a forward with the 52, so look for him. Chesser with a 50. as well. And then Witherden 49, Hunt 37. I think both those two can be moved on if you have got those. So we'll move to the Saturday night game, Tim.
Freo defeated by Richmond by 15 points at Optus. So here, obviously, just keep in mind that the wet game impacted scoring a bit. Ryan Mansell's been referred to the tribunal for a high bump on James Aish, who
that was a bad one.
Left the game with concussion as well. So once again, expect to see him out for next week.
Yeah, so I actually go, well, because of James Aish, I'll go the first one. So Matt Johnson, 93, was very good, and Aish being out maybe impacted the CBAs, or may impact maybe wing. Does Johnson have to play a wing? So, Selby, for those coaches that jumped on, they'd be very happy. But for coaches that maybe didn't jump on, is it too late to jump on Matt Johnson, who will be probably near that 400K mark before this week?
I haven't looked at the numbers exactly yet and priced that and that, but I think they like him, and it wasn't just because there was no O'Meara and even no Aish at the end. He's been getting centre bounces even when coming on as sub from his debut. So they obviously like him, and Jeff is the junior man, and he even tweeted mid-game that he's come of age, Johnson. So I think they're going to want to continue to give him time in there. So I don't think you're going to get 93s out of him every week, but I think he's going to outperform that price. I'm just going to wait to see the numbers and see if it means still worth picking.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I think it'll depend a lot on team structure. Nat Fyfe, though, Selby, another player that coaches were maybe getting a one more look at this week, and an 83 looked pretty good. I think he looked probably the best person he's looked all year. Priced still under 450. Is he an option maybe coaches could go like a peddler to him, like a sideways move to get a rookie off field and a guy that's capable of averaging the 80, 85 or more?
Potentially. So he did look great, and I think they'll go back in the vision. He spent more time forward than I thought he was going to spend, especially with O'Meara out, and Johnson spent more time inside and Aish more time inside than I thought. But when Fyfe was in those centre bounces or any around the ground stoppages, he made a big impact, whether it was knocking someone over or getting the clearance himself. Like, what did he have? He had 17 possessions and 11 of those contested. So I think they're going to realise they need him around the ball more, which is good for him. The only thing is he's never been a natural fantasy scorer, and 7 tackles. I can't remember the last time he would have had 7 tackles. So that score could have easily been a 50. So he's too risky in my opinion. But as I said, I think if he gets the added role, which I think he should get, he'll be okay.
Yeah. So he had 54% CBA. So I think he was third in line behind Sarong and Brayshaw, I think. So, and maybe even Johnson might have had more. I'm not exactly sure on that. But one for coaches to consider. Taranto's a gun, 129. We don't need to speak too much about him. He's just amazing. Nankervis is at Pod Ruck, 129. Luke Jackson, 119. If anyone jumped on him, he's got one more week. Apparently, Darcy's been ruled out as per Ryan Daniels for this week, so he'll be coming back next week. So if you jumped on him, you'll get one more week of him. Sarong, 113. Brayshaw, 100. Both sort of did their thing. Brayshaw got there with that added tackle post-game, so at least he got his ton for a lot of people on debut. Then the Freo duo of Luke Ryan and Hayden Young, 81 and 79. Not exactly what coaches would have wanted from their first game, but the wet conditions probably played a bit of a factor in that. And then Sam Sturt, just one to keep an eye on if he's named this week, as he's got that round 12 bye and will play through the byes. So, Tim, I think we'll move on to the Sunday
That's right.
games.
Before we move on to the Sunday games, if there are players you want to discuss, just please make sure you stick them in the tweet below or on YouTube in the comments, and we'll review them before we finish up if we don't touch on them as we review the games. But next game is the North game, defeated by GWS by 28 points at Blundstone. So not much to talk about here. No late changes, no injuries, and no reports.
Yep, sweet. So I think the Shees Ball, 108 and 92 for those two. So I think for a lot of coaches, they still may be moved on at round 15. So, but you probably won't move them on this week with the Bulldogs matchup. Could put up some good scores there. Briggsy, 101, continued to shine as that number one ruck. And I know a lot of people have compared him to sort of a young Sean Darcy, and he's looking very, very good at the moment. Wardlaw looks an absolute star. So he's just incredible for only a third gamer. Lockie Whitfield and Lockie Ash, I've got both those guys. They saved their scores with big last quarters, but I'll be looking to move one or both on at their bye. Stephen Canelio, Selby, so 89. He's sort of just doing his job at the moment, but is he currently still in your top 6 forwards with a couple of other guys maybe popping their heads up?
Nah, I had him out for McRae when I sent the email last week. His role's everything we wanted, and we've seen him score in that role. So there's no reason why we can't see a big score soon from him. And he hasn't been terrible. I don't know, he just looked a little bit. I don't know what it is. And I've got him in Supercoach, which is more about his efficiency and damage, and just watching him. He actually hasn't looked great as a player. So potentially want to move on that buy. I think there'll be a few candidates, but because you have to make a call on one of these decent premiums to move out to field your 18, and that's why there were coaches who did move on a Zeeble and a Sheasel last week. Yes, they put up a big score on your head, but you've done it for a reason. It's because all eyes on that round 15.
Yeah, exactly right. Moving to the next play here. So Harry Himmelberg, Tim. So 81, but Kingsley said after the game that they're going to settle him in the back line for the remainder of the year. So he's very cheap. And is he a guy that you might look at post round 15?
Hell yeah. I mean, look, we know what he did last year. I mean, I'm not sure what he's priced at, but he can't be priced at very much. So he certainly offers value. I don't even know his positional.
So he's
defender forward. So
and
he's good flexibility. 533.
Yeah.
So he's cheap as chips. I mean, I think he's certainly got to be on the radar.
He'll be about 560 post buy. So it'd be a pretty easy switch for maybe a Humphrey that people have got. Maybe Humphrey to Himmelberg in round 16. So I think he's one. Selby, is he a guy that coach should be having a good look at?
Yeah, certainly have a look this week as well. Obviously, I wouldn't be bringing in before the bye, but you won't get the last year. You mentioned you got Ash and Whitfield. Neither of those two were playing defence last year when Himmelberg went on his run. So we probably can't expect those big numbers, but they want the ball in his hand. He takes kick outs. If he doesn't take it, he'll be the first one in to get the +6. He kind of plays like Zeeble, but a little bit younger and healthier. So, he does tick boxes.
Yeah, I'll be looking at him for sure. Taron Thomas, another potential post-buy option with 78. Did kick 3 goals to get that, though, so not a huge score, but just, again, very similar to Himmelberg. Probably watch him again this week to see how he goes, because I think maybe even an LDU could be back. I'm not sure with the Simpkin, and then maybe Greenwood could be back, so it'd be interesting to see him. Finn Callahan, 71, being serviceable for coaches. I think he's one that you'd be happy to trade this week, even with the buy the week after, so he's been very good. And then just a bit of a flag on Josh Fahey and Ryan Angren. So sorry, Tim, I know you jumped on Josh Fahey. He looked good, but there is quite a number of GWS players due back this week or next week. So you've got your Isaac Cumming, your Jacob Ware, a couple of others I don't know off the top of my head. So there's a chance that it could be shaky, but hopefully not, mate. I hope that he stays in for you because I want him as an option as well. So, and then Miller Bergman as well chipped in with a 10 and got subbed out, so hopefully he didn't have to contribute to your best 18. So not too good. So we'll move to Sunday night footy, Tim.
Yeah, Carlton defeated by Essendon by 34 points at the MCG. So Andrew Phillips came in late for Massimo D'Ambrosio. Apart from that, no injuries or reports.
Yep, and that's a good thing because a few coaches were a bit nervous about Zach Merritt copping a suspension with that tackle on Chin Cotter, but he has got no case to answer, so that's good for coaches. Not he's on the bye anyway, but it might have been a trade with the 2 weeks he was missing. But Nick Martin, so shout out to Jep, who actually mentioned to us on Twitter space about a month ago that Nick Martin was a guy he was looking at and said was a nice pot option to consider, and he's been very good with 400s in a row. So shout out to Jep for that one.
I think Zave has been singing his praises for a while as well.
Yeah, I think so. Selby, you'd obviously be impressed with a guy like Nick Martin.
Yeah, he's great. I'd trust Jet probably more than Zave come fancy, but it's probably just a lesson of back in your gut. Like we see these popular traded in players every year. There'll be a few one I haven't mentioned, largely because he's not like wingman, but. Trying to find the next one of him and an under the radar player who can really make a difference.
Yep, he's been very good. So Zach Merritt got to his 97, which as a non-owner, apologies for all those Merritt owners out there. I was a little bit smug when he was on 26 halfway through the second quarter and did very, very well to shake that tag and get his points. So 97, he's doing very, very well this year, Zachy Merritt. Doherty 95 was solid as well. in a pretty poor Carlton side, which I don't quite know what's going on with the Blue Baggers at the moment. Caldwell, 92, and Hobbs, 91. So they've been serviceable for coaches, or actually very, very serviceable for coaches last few weeks. Selby, if you own one of those two players, would you be happy to jump off those two with the bye this week? Or maybe with all that carnage in round 15 with the forward, you'd maybe be looking to hold them at least till round 16?
Yeah, neither have shown any reason to drop them. So they both look great. Caldwell in particular, in terms of real life footy, and then Hobbs just has this fantasy game about him where he bobs up for marks and tackles. So doesn't need to get much of the ball and many CBAs, just 590 and still generating cash at that.
Yeah, they've been very impressive. Especially, I've just sort of really been impressed with Hobbs' game at the moment. He's doing really, really well. Sam Walsh, 91. He'll be very quite cheap actually post-bye with a break even of 150. So keep an eye out for him as that underpriced premium, and hopefully can't get their game sorted. Redmond, Ridley, McGrath are all solid, 89, 86 and 80. But again, I think all three can be moved on. Too many mouths to feed back there, I think. Shera, 82. Again, he could be one that you can look at moving if you're owning of him. Chincotta, 55. Again, I think another one that can be moved. And just want to mention Paddy Cripps, 45. He's now, I think, 3 sub-70 scores in a row. Just the drop-off there, Tim. It's been quite drastic, I think.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I don't think many of us have gone anywhere near it this year anyway, so probably doesn't impact anyone.
Yeah, I just thought I'd mention it. It was just quite stark looking at it.
Yeah,
but there you go.
They look like a mess. But anyway.
Yeah. Beautiful. Final game.
Sure.
Great game.
All right. Well, yeah, exactly. Great game on the King's birthday. It feels weird saying that for the first time. But anyway, so Melbourne defeated by Collingwood by 4 points at the MCG. So late changes. There was one with Ginnivan being replaced by Reef McInnes. Apart from that, a couple of injuries. Tomlinson did his hand, Viney a shoulder, and Moore an ankle. But we'll see how they play out during the week.
Yep. Jack Viney top scored with 135. So shout out to the coach that got him in draft. And same with Jack Crisp, 131. So Tom Mitchell, 121. He's had a couple of good games in a row. Selby, you still a bit concerned just with that Collingwood game style? Or is he a guy that may post-buy, if he puts up some more games like this, he could be a sneaky under-the-radar option?
Yeah, I'm starting to think sneaky under-the-radar option. We keep talking about the game style, but they were like Dacos is scoring well. Degoe is showing when he needs to, he scores well. So I think back half of last year, second half of the season, no player averaged over 90. But I think we're seeing different scores this year. And if there's scores to be had, he seems to feast on them, old Tommy Mitchell. So, yeah, I wouldn't rule him out.
Yeah, that's back-to-back 120. So definitely one to keep on the radar for coaches out there. Petrarca, 103. So again, just ticked over the ton for coaches on, and he's got the bye this week. Nick Dacos as well, getting his ton with a 101. Darcy Cameron, Tim, has been very, very good last couple of weeks with 96 and a pretty tough matchup, and only had 13 hitouts to get to that. So just having a look at the CBA numbers in that game. So he had the line share with 13 to Mason Cox's 8. And I know that Darcy Cameron did get stuck on the bench for a period in that second quarter. So I think you jumped on this week. But for coaches, is he still an option post around 14 bye?
Look, it's going to be tough. I mean, we've just got so many forwards. I mean, even like Selby was saying before, like we're probably even finding that a couple of those forwards and maybe even kind of moving into the midfield there. So, I mean, he does. Excuse me. He does offer value. But I'm not, I think the time to bring him in was probably a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, for that West Coast matchup. So both have got. So he's got the bye, and then so does Ben Keys. Selby, if you had to pick between Ben Keys and Darcy Cameron, have you got a preference between the two?
I think it'd be Cameron because you know he's going to guarantee be their number one ruck the rest of the year. Whereas Ben Keys, as you said, he could be playing half forward on Dacos next week and forward pocket the week after. Who knows? So. Lots of options, which is a good thing. And the more normally this time of year, there's not many options, but everyone's pretty set on who they want to get in. So teams become pretty similar. But I can see where we'll see lots of different paths for teams to go on the back end of the year post buys, and we'll see a bit of a shake up.
Yeah. I think I like Cameron for that security blanket for. If English and Marshall, if anything, touch would happen to them, you could just switch Cameron into your rucks and bring in another player, another position. Max scored with an 84 there, so coaches have got him. You're still holding through the buys, but just not quite the scores with the sharing of the ruck with Grundy there. Angus Brayshaw still hasn't quite put up those scores we want with an 80, but Salem put up 100, which was good to see for him, but we still probably would need to see more from him if we were to consider him a genuine option to look at. Cade Chandler, 62, and Jacob Van Rooyen, 49. Tim, would you be happy to move off both those guys with their buy or maybe look to hold?
No, look, I think, well, I mean, it depends how you look at it in round 15, of course, but yeah, I mean, we're all looking to get off those kind of players and get a finished team or, getting primos for a finished team after the buys,
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and I hope those coaches out there did jump off Cosy Picks, another 41, just not quite putting up those scores, not playing midfield. So I believe that is it from that game. So I think that's we've got through the games, Tim, pretty quickly.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and look, I know Selbs doesn't have a huge amount of time with us today, but I thought what we might do before we let him run off is just kind of quickly run through who he thinks the kind of top targets to kind of trade in might be this week. Sorry to put you on the spot, Selbs, but what do you think, mate?
Yeah, so it's normally you trade in players coming off their bye, but we're in a rare situation where there's only 2 teams, and I think neither team would have a lock for best 22. Probably Tom Stewart would be closest to that in defence and potentially Noah Anderson in the midfield. But you might then have to look into the players you missed like the week before, which there were a few, as you said, Neil now showing his ag and great. So for me, it's probably Sinclair down back. Midfield, I don't mind the buy low on Noah Anderson. And what's the forwards looking coming off their buy? I'm not sure if there is any really attractive ones coming off the buy.
I think only Jeremy Cameron, I think a few people have maybe floated the idea about. I don't know what your thoughts are on him.
I think he might be a plug and play, and that's a luxury with the AFL fans with these unlimited trades and teams looking like they're going to have no rookies on the field. We might be able to play things like this, and if I've got a West Coast matchup, bring him in for one game only. But I don't know what it is. It's been years since we've had a key position full forward as a top 6 forward. So in a year where we've got Jack McRae, Taranto, Dunkley, Butters, Rosie, I doubt we're going to see a full forward in there.
Yeah. Anyone else, Tim, that maybe Selby didn't mention that you've got your eye on as a coming off their bye or already had their bye?
Yeah, look, I'll be looking obviously probably at Jack Sinclair down back. I do need a defender. So he, especially after he got his 107 this week. And I was looking for a little bit more confidence in terms of the role. So I guess that kind of, got that extra week to look at him and, it makes me feel a bit more comfortable about bringing him in. But probably on the other side of things would be rookies to bring in. And, for me, I think that the kind of the standout is probably an Angus Sheldrick, although obviously we do have concerns about his job security. But, he probably won't be too much over $200,000, depending on how the price change comes out when lockout lifts. But yeah, I think that's what most people will be going down to, and they're looking at what players they missed last week in terms of the teams coming off their round 12 bye.
Yeah, so Sheldrick had a break even of 63 and he scored 79, so he won't go up much. But the big flag I would say with him is that Luke Parker will be back this week after his suspension. Then Callum Mills was listed as 1 to 3, so a bit of a watch on him. I think we're all hoping he gets named Mills because then he might be an option in round 15.
The other one I probably do want to ask Selves about before we let him go is I think the other one that might be high on the trade-in list is Marcus Windhager. What do you think about him?
I've always liked him, but I don't think Ross likes him. So bit trickier. Just watch for Sheldrick. Let's just see how much he does go up. The old Wonkster had his break even more towards the 40s, which could see him jump almost 39k this week. So we'll have a look. I know lots of people have it was 66 or whatever it was, and I think people went Marek over Sheldrick for that reason. But yeah, let's have a look what price he does go up. I reckon he might go up a bit more than the 2 or 3k, which the bigger break even would have done.
Yeah, perfect. So I reckon that's it, Tim, from the options. You just want to run through the Content Creators Cup?
Well, look, what we'll do is I might let Selbs jump off. I know he's going to do the child daycare runs. So, mate, just once again, thanks for all you do for the community. I mean, obviously, saw you up at the Freo game a couple of weeks back, donating all the money to Starlight. So great work there. And I know, obviously, you always credit, the members as well. But obviously, you put all together the content. So we just appreciate everything you do. And, mate, just thanks very much for coming on the AFL Fantasy Fanatics.
No, cheers, boys. Love what you do. And, yeah, I do credit the members because they are the ones who do support. I'm just even looking at the list now. Who's jumped on the list. And there's some good names there who are very familiar to me. So big shout out to them. And thanks again. We'll chat to you all soon.
Awesome, mate.
Cool. Thanks, Selbs.
Great. Well, before we finish up, and maybe I'll run through this, and Bales, you can have a look through the comments and stuff like that, just to see if there's any other players we're going to run through before we finish up. But yeah, AFL Content Creators Cup, proudly brought to you by Infinite Wealth, helping you reach your financial goals faster. Hang on. Clicked off the page and then forgot what I was saying. Where winning coaches will get $5,000 for their favourite charity. Now, a reminder, there's something special for every AFL fantasy coach available too. So head across to infinitewealth.com.au AFL Fantasy to claim your free 5-module online learning program, the Fast Track to Freedom, which includes, it's got printouts and exercises, and there's people you can reach out to support, and you get to work on your personal situation and learn how to make your money work hardest for you as you go through the program. So you can learn how to pay your mortgage off up to 3 times faster, how to save thousands on tax every year, and how to build your wealth and replace your income. So head across to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy. But yeah, let me now jump across back to my other page. So a couple of things I just want to acknowledge, first of all, was the results from the week. So we had a couple of pretty big scores. So Holmesy got a 21.63, which I think was the biggest score for the week, but then also big credit to Mitch, who had a 21.09. So I think Mitch is doing pretty well. Obviously, lockout hasn't lifted, and I haven't prepared myself well enough to be able to tell you how you're all going.
So he's currently
he's 536.
Coach. Currently the top ranked coach overall.
Yeah, he's taken the award off me. So big week for him, mate. So he's been really moving the last few weeks. So great work to Mitch. But yeah, like I said, lockout hasn't lifted, and I haven't prepared myself to figure out how all the other coaches shone. So I think that's about all of the update we'll do on the AFL Content Creators Cup this week, mate.
Yeah, and Bales lost again.
Bales lost again. Oh yeah, mate.
Yeah.
It's not been a good year for you, has it, mate?
No, it's a bit of a stitch up here, but yeah, I still think I can win a few on the road home. So let's see how we go on the way back.
That's all right, mate.
Let's fingers crossed.
All right.
But yeah, so in terms of just a couple of, we haven't got sort of too many player recommendations. Sort of just more a couple of just trade out questions. So Sam just had the first one. Who would you trade out first out of Caldwell and Hobbs? Would you trade them? Would you trade the one that's more expensive in Caldwell, or would you trade out the one in Hobbs, who Caldwell's probably got the more CBAs out of the two?
God, I would love to give an opinion on this, but I haven't really been watching Caldwell at all. What did he score? What's he priced at? I imagine people probably brought him in a couple of weeks ago with obviously all those Essendon midfielders going out. What did he score? He got a 92. He's got his bye this week. Yeah, look, once again, it's all very dependent on how people are, shaping up in round 15. Because I know for myself, I've still got to make trades to make sure I've got enough players for round 15. So that will be my focus, and I think that will make more of my trade decisions this week than specific players. I don't think there's anyone that I can think of that in particular was tanking. So I think it's more how, what suits your particular team in terms of what's going to be the best moves for this week. But, the only thing that I would offer, like I did sort of talk about a little bit on the spaces, was one thing you could consider, and I know there's a lot of content creators out there talking about, kind of getting as many green dots as possible. And obviously there was a real benefit in doing that this week. Or we pretty much had that this week. But I think there's also merit in maybe trying to go closer to the 18 green dots and just make sure you got more primos. So I think that's one thing.
Yeah, you've been very big on that. You've been very big on that strategy.
Yeah, look, I think the truth is that it's not so much about your green dots; it's about your primos. They're the players that score and the scores that are really going to count. So, if you can have 18 green dots, but 16 of them are primos. I think that's better than having 20 green dots and, maybe 14 or 15 primos. So, but obviously it's all team dependent, which is the catchphrase of the bye period. And look, we're maybe not looking as desperate as we once were. I mean, I know for me, Josh Fay played this week, Campbell Chesser played this week.
Ryan Marrick, Sheldrick, Winhager.
Johnson. Matthew Johnson, Wardlaw. I mean, Johnson and Wardlaw. I mean, potentially they could be played on field. Once we kind of come out of the buys. So, So Harvey Harrison, another rookie that scored okay. It's going to be generating some cash for players as well. I mean, you wouldn't play him on the ground, but
I forgot to mention him. What did he score in the end? I didn't actually know.
54.
Okay, so that's solid enough.
Yeah. So it's maybe not as dire as what we once thought. Just keep making your trades. Probably going to be a little bit easier this week. We've got an extra week to look at some of those players.
Yeah.
Just keep your eye on round 15.
The only thing we've got to realise is we've only got 2 nights, and then we've got the next lockout because we've got Thursday night. So I'm not complaining. I want to put this round to bed. It's been a tough one, but I would probably trade Caldwell before Hobbs just because he's going to be a bit more expensive. And the EV said, who's the best and most trust option defender to bring in? They've got Dawson, Dacos, and Stewart. So is it Sinclair because they've got Stewart? Is he probably the next best defender that's come off their bye, you reckon?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at this week myself. And I think the answer is Stewart, yeah. I mean, I think, probably Sicily was the other one that we might have been looking at. I mean, obviously with the bye coming, but now that he's been rubbed out, I mean, that kind of puts a line through him. So, yeah, Sinclair seems to be the other option.
Well, you did actually answer this one. So Ms. Trickle Downs said, would love some buy strategy advice, please. If you can field 22 and you're having a good round. Sorry, Bales had Dunks VC. Thanks for reminding me of my poor choices with VC and C. She said, are you better off fielding a couple of rooks to score low so small scores get knocked off your final score, or better off fielding high score as possible? So obviously you've mentioned that you're big on having those 18 players with 16 prems. Or if you can get 19 or 20, that's great. But you just want as many prems as possible compared to having 22, but 8 of them be rookies.
Look, it's it's risky, but you're aiming for the reward, and I guess that's what I'm going for, because I think that's the opportunity that the buys create. It kind of creates carnage and chaos, and it kind of you want to try and use that time to get aggressive and move ahead. So, but there's certainly merit to both strategies. I don't think there's a right answer necessarily, but I'm trying to squeeze every last point I possibly can out of my team to climb rank. So, you're going to fly a little bit too close to the sun sometimes and you're going to get burnt, but, that's the game we play.
Yeah, well, my strategy's been a bit, I've wanted to make sure I've got 22 or 21 in rounds 14 and 15 to try and capitalise on those tough bye weeks. So hopefully I can capitalise on that. So I've gone a little bit different, but that's probably more the fact I've had been a little bit luckier with more green dots. So I've maybe been able to go that way. So that's the thing. We obviously talk about strategy, but a lot of it's dictated by what rookies get named and if they keep their spot, what prems get injured or what prems are doing well, stuff like that. So it is team dependent, but you can also try and fit your strategy one way or the other. I like this one from Ben. Neil or Sinclair this week, if you had to pick one?
What are they priced at?
They're very similar. So Neil will be roughly about 850 odd. I think Sinclair will be about 835. I'm still Sinclair for me because I think he's close to a top 6 defender than what Neil is a top 8. But
yeah, that's probably a good call, Bales. I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah. Robert said, other than Sinclair and Stewart, who's the best option? So I'm just thinking off the top of my head. So no Geelong, no Gold Coast. It's probably got to be a Lloyd, Young, Ryan. There's no Brisbane defenders. And that's the Sydney defenders and Fresh. So if you had to pick one of those 3, Lloyd, Ryan, or Young, is there a preference? So I'm not keen on any of them. But
so here's what I would ask the person who asked this to consider: can you get away without running a defender? You don't need 6 defenders this week. Like, we're only playing best 18. So I mean, at the moment, I've technically got 2 rookies on field in my defenders. I've got Chesser and Faye on field. Yeah, okay, I've got Stewart to come back in, but I was potentially running a red dot with Faye or Chesser sitting at D6. So I wonder whether you might be, because I don't really like any of those options. I think you're better off waiting a week.
Yeah.
And
bringing in a Dawson or a Dacos or someone that you don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just quickly, you mentioned Chester. Do you think he's going to hold his spot in the Eagles 22? Look, he had some good moments in the midfield. Had their most CBAs.
I think the plan with West Coast, it's not so much about whether he's going to hold his spot or not. They were planning to run him in the waffle to give him some confidence and get some form into him. And it was going to be a pure circumstantial thing that they would have in play. And that's why I imagine he was the sub, so to give him a bit of a game, but to give him as much time. But, of course, there was that late change which brought him in. So I think he will probably go out of the side because they're looking to rest him, but I don't think that's because will have anything to do with, how he's playing.
Yeah, agreed.
But we all know how, decimated the Eagles are. So it's really is just a week-to-week proposition.
Yeah, exactly. Braden said he's a fan of Nick Martin and said if he's an option after his buy, but we were talking before he's been a good pick, but you want those guys are going to be in around the top 6, so I think it'd be too expensive to consider as an option, unfortunately, there. Jason was talking about Mills, so if he's the only premium that he can get to that he likes, is it fine if he's named this week to go a week early, even with that high break even, or would you be still steering clear and going for another option if you can help it?
Yeah, I'd like that as an option. I don't think so much at this time of the year. His break evens don't really come into it so much, right? He's going to be pretty lowly priced because of obviously how he was
$7.39.
Yeah, exactly.
$1.49 right. Break even.
At that price, I couldn't give a shit about his break even. And I think particularly for coaches out there that are looking to be aggressive, if he is named, I think there is a lot of merit in moving it early because we know that guy has the potential to be a top 4 midfielder.
Yeah. I'm still, if you can't help and he's the best you can get to, I guess you can go early and cop that cash hit. But I think most of us would probably say you'd rather wait a week to watch him, make sure he's all good, and then bring him in. But if that's the best you can get to, though, because there's not many options around that price coming off their buy, I think it's okay to launch him.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I think with this kind of player, right? Look, I think with a lot of players out there, you're right. You do want a week to see him, but he's had a good break, right? I don't think they're going to be bringing him back unless he is okay to play. And I think the analogy here, it's kind of like when I play poker with my mates, right? If you got a good hand, you either bet or you don't bet. You never limp in, right? So
I like that one. Good one.
Right? You've either got a good enough hand that you bet with or it's not good enough and you fold. You don't bloody limp in, right? So anyway, that poker strategy for another day. But I think there's an opportunity in the buys to make a move. And, I guess if you want to sleep, nicely at night, maybe don't do it. But I'm in this game to be as ranked as highly as I can. And I think that would be a real solid move that coaches could make. And that would be something that I would be looking to make as well.
Yeah. Final 2 here as well. Just Henry was saying my score is less this week than last week. Is it something that just happened during the buys? And yes, it just scores fluctuate depending on how many you have playing, how many premiums you've got, how high they score, how low they score, how your captain goes. So it does just fluctuate. But as a lot of coaches say, you sort of take the buys as a 4-week block. Normally it's 3 weeks, but this week's 4-week block. And if you've risen through the buys, then that's what you want. So it's almost one big round stretched across a month. So it will fluctuate, but hopefully you can, you might have had a poor week, but hopefully you can bounce back this week and next week like myself because I had a poor one. So hopefully we can respond. Then the final one comes from Lauren here. So she's saying, trade Sheasel to Sinclair this week, or would you wait till Sheasel's buy? So this is a little bit similar to the Mills one. Are you happy just to, if you can get Sinclair now, would you be happy to move off Sheasel? So he's got the Bulldogs this week, Sheasel, which is a good matchup for defenders. He's playing a bit more midfield, though.
This is something I might even be considering myself. But my immediate reaction, so I haven't thought about it well enough to give a good answer, But my immediate thought is that I would probably be looking to hold She's a little bit. There's probably someone else I might be looking to get off. I mean, look, I didn't see that game. How did you see his role?
He was, yes, midfield, half back. He sort of moved a little bit around everywhere, and obviously scored pretty well. But if you're heavy round 15, especially, I think it's fine to jump a week early. You might take a point hit this week, but
if you could hold him, would you hold him, or would you be looking at getting off?
If you can hold him and you're fine for next week, I'd probably hold for an extra week.
Yeah.
With that good matchup. So,
all right, good.
His break-even was 170. He got a 92. He's not going to drop down too much. So, yeah, I think he'll be fine. So, Perfect. We had a few other questions, but we'll obviously we'll wrap it up now anyway. We've been on for a little bit, but appreciate everyone that sent through their questions.
Awesome. All right. Well, finally, just, once again, thank you very much to Selbs for coming on. Obviously we appreciate him and all the work he does for the community. And of course, if you're not a member of Moreira's Magic, then what the hell are you doing? Get across there, sign up. Obviously, it's for a good cause, and you get all the great advice from the GOAT as well as the stats. I mean, the buy planner for me on the Moreira's Magic website has been invaluable as we move through the buys, and I think it's really, really helped in terms of my scores. But apart from that, thanks for joining us, and in particular, thanks to those who sent in questions. You can send your questions to us on Twitter, and please follow us along on AFL Fantasy Fans. Don't forget to tune in each week after the final siren of the round for the live Twitter space. And remember, normally at about 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, 4 p.m. Western Standard on a Friday, we normally do our pre-lockout chat as well. And remember, you can listen to these spaces on the AFL Fantasy Fanatics podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, please subscribe to the pod and give us a 5-star review. Actually, we don't really have too many reviews. It'd be great if people could jump across there and, give us a like or a recommendation of 5 stars and tell us how awesome we are or something along those lines. But Bales, mate, where can people find you?
At BalesDT on Twitter and trulybailshd on YouTube. If anyone's listening to the Twitter space, you can head over to YouTube now, and I'll be answering more questions if you guys want that answered and going through that. But I'll just quickly say as well before I hand it back to you, Tim, you probably haven't looked too much at trades, but in terms of just early moves for me, I think I've looked at maybe Pedler to Fife, maybe another rookie across, maybe down to Sheldrick, maybe bank a bit of cash, and then going someone like maybe a Lockie Ash a week early, or Will Day up to a Brad Crouch or a Jack Sinclair. That's sort of what I've looked at. And then, Tim, where can the people find you, mate? And if you've got your trades, sort of any plans, then feel free to share.
Oh, look, I know that Caminiti will be going out probably for Sheldrick. I've got 200K in the bank as well, so plus that will give me about 380. And then, I'm not sure who. I might even look at an Ashcroft this week, or I'm not sure. Yeah, too early to tell.
Yep.
But apart from that, people can find me on Twitter at TimGuestAU. Apart from that, guys, thanks for joining us. Have a great week, and we will catch you all again same time. Well, no, it won't be same time next week, but you know the time. So we'll see you then.
See ya.
See ya.
Beautiful. Thanks, Tim.
Good stuff, Bales.
Beautiful. Have a good night, mate.
You too, mate. Chat soon.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao.
Make sure you head over to YouTube, guys. I'll be answering some questions if you feel free. So, but thanks, guys. Chat soon. Oh, perfect. Thanks, guys. All right, beautiful. I'll answer some questions for a little bit. About maybe 10, 15 minutes getting my desk all sorted. Apologies for that. Obviously, you didn't use the camera during the Twitter space. So, anyway, if you got any questions, feel free to drop them below. I might go live for maybe 20 minutes or so and answer some questions that you guys have got, and then we'll be good to go. So we got it's funny that we've only got a couple of days to lockout. Happens again. So Thursday night footy. So I don't mind the fact that we can. I had a poor week this week. I can rebound after only 2 days, which is great. So let's get through some questions. We've got 38 people watching. So if you are enjoying the Twitter space and the stream, make sure you leave a like. I hope we can get 30 likes for 38 people watching. So if you haven't liked it, make sure you do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're on 11:47. We're closing in on 11:50 and hopefully 1200 shortly as well. So if you haven't subscribed, bottom right-hand corner, feel free. would be very much appreciated. Oh, all right, let's go. So Jane Ellis, -3 English, mate. 100% I'm with you. I had to get that out straight away with the pod today. It was just did my head in. Obviously, having captain. I'm not doing it again. Thursday night VC, Friday night captain. Just not happening. Mike Purdy, big F by the DJ. It was a good game, wasn't it? I thought Collingwood might have come back and stole that at the end, but Melbourne held on. So good for them. And a good win, much needed win. Jack Mulder scored 1935 as well. Oh, mate, snap. There you go. So we both scored 1935. I don't think it wasn't the worst score. So I only moved down 1,400 spots, which considering I was 9,800 yesterday, I thought I wasn't going to move up at all. So I moved up 300 spots today, so I'll take it. But hopefully responding this week, and hopefully you can as well, Jack. Jason Beck, can you have Dunkley, Taranto, and Butters in the midfield this year and have 6 other forwards? I think you can. Like Dunkley, Trent, and Butters are averaging almost just as good as the top 8 mids, but you're not going to want to because in the forward line, let's say you got Dunkley, Trento, Butters, let's say Rosie, Goulden, and McRae, right? Let's say they're the 6 that you've got. I think that your other options like a Cornelio, I'm just quickly going through some names on the top of my head here that I can think of. Like Dylan Moore's not the guy, but maybe Dusty Cameron. So these options here, if you put them up against guys that are on the brink of the top 8 mids, so that could be like maybe even a Lockie Neal if he sort of does well for the rest of the year. But like there's going to be, I think the bottom of the top 8 mids are going to be averaging more than those forwards. So I still think it's better you can have it now, but as the year goes, I think you've got to move Taranto, Dunkley, Butters back in your forward line and you trade your worst forwards out and you bring in better midfielders. For me, that's what I'd rather do. Because I still think there's a lot of good midfielders that hopefully will have good second half of the year. Jason, I would end up with McRae, Gordon, Daniels, Rosie, Bolton, and Cornelio. So yeah, I'd want to move like a Bolton, Caleb. I don't know if that's Brent Daniels or Caleb Daniel, but I'd probably want to move them on, or even Daniel back into your defence and move someone else on. And even maybe a Cogs out of those names, or McRae, something like that. You'd want to move into another midfielder. So I would look to move him back in your forward line. Fido, why is my score less than what it should be? Is it a buy thing? Oh, that's right. You that's on Twitter space. Yeah, it's just as I said, just the sort of buy thing. That's what happens. Sort of you have more preems on a buy one week, you'll have more preems playing the next week, and you'll probably have a better score. So it just sort of just depends. Jack Wilson finished with 1952, not great. We got me by what's that, 17 points. So, but yeah, obviously under 2,000 this week, you probably might have dropped rank. But again, we can only just sort of pick everything up and move on to the next week. And hopefully you have a good week next week and respond, which is what I'm hoping for as well. So, Mike Purdy, thoughts on Nevitt's job security? Geelong, so probably not much. We probably didn't mention actually on the Twitter space about Mullen. Mullen's probably one that you've got to keep an eye on if he gets named, because I think Jack Bowes, Max Holmes, Mitch Duncan, Patrick Dangerfield are apparently all going to be back in Geelong, or for the game this week. So I'm not sure if Mullen holds this spot. So that might be one that coach has to look at. Might be a number less if he doesn't hold. But yeah, Nevitt, he's played well, but again, you just can't trust Geelong and these rookies. Tom Young is German Impian option 2 weeks. Not for me. I don't see him being a top sort of defender or forward. I think is he defender forward? And I don't even know what his price is, but I think it, 638 defender. He's had a couple of good scores in a row, 97, 118 and 124, but he had a 54 before that, 63, 58. So he's very up and down. I don't see him being consistent. He's too expensive to even take a punt on, so not for me. Corey Blackledge, sure, some good options for Hunt, Sicily and Noble and JVR. Don't know who to get rid of. Need to get rid of them ASAP. So yeah, it's probably defence, your Sicily's, not Sicily's, your Sinclair, sorry, because you're training Sicily. Sinclair, Stewart, probably the 2 defenders, and then you've got, obviously, there's plenty of options. Just got to try and pick the ones that you like coming off the bye. So Brisbane, Fremantle, Geelong, Gold Coast, St Kilda, Sydney, and yeah, I think they're the teams. And I don't know if I said Freo, but yeah, just try and get players from those teams. Matthew Salt, Sarong or Neil? If you've got the cash to spend, it's Sarong for me still. If you've got the cash there, I'd rather get Sarong because I think he's more close to the top 8 than what Neil is. But Neil's been good last few weeks. So if you need the cash, I'd go Neil. So it really depends where your team's at. If you need the cash for your next upgrade, it's Neil. But if you are happy just to get the better player, I think Sarong is probably going to be scoring more for the rest of the year.
Corey Blackledge end up on 1943, only went up 900 spots. So, yeah, it looks like, par was around that 1950 or more. So I was just under par, but I did fall down a bit because I think I might be there might be a real cluster around where I'm ranked. So, hopefully response this week. Scott Nelson, 2033 week bars, average of 113 per player. So very, very nice there, Scott. So good week for you, mate. Connor Johns, Duncan. No, not for me. Too risky. I know that buys is probably the time you can take the risk, but I couldn't trust him. Not for me. But I'm not sure. No, not for me. Corey Blackledge, my effort of 1943 is without Wardor and Johnson on field. So that's obviously good. So you didn't have those two on field. And at least you probably got the two as well. So they'll be making good cash. So Corey, so now 9,900 odd, down 900 spots. Okay, so you're about 9K down to 9,000. Well, at least you're still top 10K. That's still something. So I'm holding on to that. I still held top 10K. Connor Johns, if I can field 18 this week, should I go Ashcroft up instead of Day? If you've got a few rookies in those 18, probably not. I don't think Ashcroft's a trade just because you've held him through Riz buy. I think he's going to be valuable this week and next week. So for me, I just don't think you're trading him until at least round 16. But it's very team dependent. If you've got 18 primos this week, then you probably could, but I'd prefer to just hold till post buy. Sumchai, Sicily hasn't been rubbed out yet, has he? Oh, no, so he's been sent straight to the tribunal, which means he'll get at least 3 weeks. So he'll be out for at least a month. That's obviously including his buy. So, yeah, he's has to go. Jack Wilson, Will Day to Sinclair or Sicily? I keep saying Sicily. Will Day to Sinclair or Stewart, sorry, for Jack Wilson there. Who would I go? I think Stewart. I think Stewart's probably got I know Sinclair's got the ceiling. I think Stewart's got the more consistent ceiling, if that makes sense. I think Sinclair's going to go a lot of your sort of 90s and then pop a 120, whereas I think Stewart will go a few 120s or so in a row like he has done, I think, already. I think got a 120 and a 115. So I think it's Stewart. Take out that 14 that he got injured on. He's averaging 99. So if on that point, and I think Stewart's more cheaper as well. So I'd go the fact he's cheaper and he's got more games at GMH beyond the run home. So for me, it's Stewart. Sam Brunton, Ashcroft to Neil. Again, I'd still hold Ashcroft, I think, but if that works for your buys, you've got enough. Well, it doesn't work for your buys because you obviously both round 12. But if you've got enough this week and next week for 18 and you're happy with those, then you probably could do it. Ben Hayes, hi mate. When your players' price change, will it be by tonight? Yeah, it will be. So hopefully within half an hour or so when lockout lifts, and then you will be able to see the price change and make your trades. Porter Dennis, Errol Gordon, VC, and Timish captain was supposed to be a safe play. Yep. So Porter, I know you're ranked a lot better than me. You were top 50, I think, last week, the week before. So unfortunately, that might have meant that you probably slipped a little bit. But I did the same thing. I thought it was a pretty good play. Gordon against Saints. No Parker, no Mills. More midfield time into English, who's been safe, and he pops his lowest score for the year. So I didn't get to watch him last week. Brought him in, and he had his highest score for the year. I get to watch him, put the captaincy on him, and he goes his lowest score for the year. So, yeah. Jack Wilson is also trying to get rid of Dylan Williams. If I think if it works for you buys, you can go this week, but he may go next week. I just got to probably look if it works for me. But if it works for you, I think you can go this week. Go him out this week because he's got Geelong. So I think he's fine to trade if it works. OG Eagles, trade a premium in Will Day to get more points this week or trade long to win Hager, sacrificing points. Again, it probably depends how many players you've got. If you've got 21, then probably no point. But if you've got maybe 18 or 19, maybe getting a Win Hager in who can pop a 70 might be more beneficial. It probably just depends. And you're going to go to look at round 15. Is Day going to be important in round 15? Do you need him in your side? So again, it just comes down to buys. But you can go Day to a premium if you need points. But I'd also like the long to Win Hager trade. Ben Hayes, Merritt going to be suspended. No, so he got off. So no suspension for him. Jason, thanks, mate. All good. Happy to help, mate. Moonboy Merritt got off. Yep, exactly right. Scott Nelson, Tom Green, 73. Just a bad week. Yeah, I think so. I think it's just a bad week. I wouldn't be worrying. If he popped another 70 this week, then all of a sudden that's something to be thinking about, and you could probably move off him in his buy. But I think he's fine. I think it's just one bad game. He's been a 110 plus guy for every game, essentially, bar a couple. So I think for me, just a bad game. Porter, Dennis, Bergman, Noah Long, and Drury to Sheldrick. Okay, so Bergman, Noah Long and Drury to Sheldrick, Winhager and Johnson 2 sideways. I think so, because unless you've got no numbers, I think you can still trade other guys more expensive, not premiums, because you don't want to be sideways in premiums. again, if it works for your team, you probably couldn't not because you're going to get cashed in for the other 3. But I think if you can go like a Pedler or someone of that ilk, you might not have Pedler Porter there, but if you've got someone that's a bit more expensive, moving them to someone that's going to score more points, I think maybe more beneficial. But again, it just depends on your team. Mike Purdy, didn't see Tom Green's game. What happened? Started the season with the bang, dropped right off. Yeah, he just wasn't. His last quarter was good. He looked back to Tom Green of old, but he only scored about 39 odd points in the other 3 quarters. So I think it was just a bad game. If you look at his games, obviously high break even. He's gone 81, 111, 108, 115, 73. So yeah, his scores have dropped off a little bit in his last 5, but he did play Collingwood, Geelong in those. I think he'll be fine. He's got Melbourne, Hawthorn, Adelaide, Gold Coast post by pretty nice run. I'd still be holding. I think he's still a top 8 mid in my eyes. So, yep, I would be holding. Corey, how long do you reckon till lockout? Not sure. Hopefully within the hour or so. That would be nice. Zach, trade Gawn for his buy. I've Marshall, no English. Probably not. I think you because you want Marshall and English post like the buys as your 2 rucks. So I would hold Gawn this week. I'd trade him around 16. So I wouldn't be trading Gawn. Corey Blackledge, any good rucks playing this week so I can get Cameron forward or wait till English? I think I'll just wait till English. I think very similar question just then. I wouldn't trade anyone out on the buy this in the rucks this week unless it's not Darcy Cameron or Max Gawn. I would just take the donut for this week and play him next week. So I would hold. Jack Wilson, is it time to get rid of Weddle purely because of the buy? And if so, who comes in? Yeah, I think he can go. Again, probably depends who can come in. It's probably if Mullen, if you don't have Mullen, he gets named, he's probably the obvious pick to go Waddle. I said Waddle because you said Waddle there. To go Weddle down to Mullen if he got named. But if you can go DPP, you got Winhager, Sheldrick, a couple other guys that maybe you can look at. But he doesn't have to go, I don't think. But if it works, then I think he can. Porter Dennis, Tom Green got tagged by Shields, so nothing to worry about going for. I did cop a tag by Shields because I wasn't looking at it too closely. But yeah, if he got tagged by Shields, and that, yeah, I thought it was just a bad game, but there you go. Braden Kelly, do whatever you can to hold Wardlaw next week. I think it depends how he goes this week. Because he'll be 450 this week, maybe even a bit more. If he puts on pull 1 next week, you can move on. But I think it's still probably a good thing to hold. If he's your final rookie on field post buy, then that's fine, I think. So I wouldn't do whatever you can. If you can still go into a primo, you still do that. But it just depends. Scott Nelson, I traded in Jackson over English this week because I wanted to wait for his buy. One of my best decisions this year. Well, obviously good there, Scott. You've got another week of Jackson in number 1 ruck with Sean Darcy out. So it looks like a good play from you, mate. Corey Blackledge, Tom Green got Shields tag. Yep. OG Eagles, Sheldrick, Robinson, Winhager, Jeffrey, Fife rankings. So to rank them, Sheldrick or Robertson, if Sheldrick holds his spot, you probably rank him ahead of Robertson because they've probably got the same job security and he's cheaper. Winhager, I think I've got Winhager above Sheldrick if you can afford. I think it's another one if you can pay up for the rookie. I think Winhager will be there through the buys, whereas Sheldrick might not be. So I'd go Winhager over Sheldrick and Robertson. I haven't even looked at Jeffrey, to be honest. What's Jeffrey even priced at? 444. Average of 55, like 61, 75 in his last 2 playing in defence. Who knows what Gold Coast is doing? So no. So Jeffrey's probably the bottom of the list. And Fife Winhager is interesting. They both got midfield, I think. If you want probably the more trustworthy goal of job security, it's Fife. So I've probably got Fife just ahead of Winhager. But if you need that extra 100 or so K between the two, you probably could go Winhager. So it's just interesting. OG Eagles, Jeffrey would kick in role. Yeah, I know, but I'm still not sold that he's going to be scoring enough to really make a lot of money. But I could be wrong, but I'm just not a fan. So I'd go Fife and Winhager if you can, those two. Porter Dennis, I have 7 midfielders that are top 8 at the moment. Do I pass on Neil to save a spot for Clary? You don't have to. Obviously, you want Oliver at some point, but you can always go Oliver. So you can always go Neil to Oliver post buys. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think it just depends on the upgrade. If you've got another upgrade, another position that you can do, like a Sinclair or someone, you could do that instead. But again, it just depends what it looks like. So just team dependent, I think. If you guys got any more questions, well, feel free to send them through. I'll go for another couple of minutes here. We've got 46 people watching. So if this video could get to 50 likes, that'd obviously be amazing. But obviously that's more what we got. So we'll have to see. But yeah, if you haven't liked the video, make sure you do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn notifications on so you miss when I go live or upload any other content throughout the week. Jack Wilson, after buys, does Goulden go? Not for me. No, he's top 6 forward. No, he had a poor game. It's his first score under 100 in 6 weeks. And it was just John Lombard not playing the right position. But it was because they moved Lloyd to a wing and they put Goulden forward, whereas Goulden's normally on a wing, which is where he scores more as well and through the midfield. So for me, they'll have players back this week. Lloyd will probably move back to a back flank, which means that Goulden will move back to a wing. So for me, it's fine. Goulden's fine. He'll still be a top 6. So I would not be trading at all. Mike Purdy, can we trust the Berg? I think we can. What again? We get to watch him this week. I would not be trading him in this week. I'd be watching one more week. He's got to buy, and then we can assess post buy. But I think the fact that Cadman was dropped and Himmelberg still played in defence, I think that's a good sign. Kingsley's already said they want to settle him in defence for the rest of the year. So for me, I do like Himmelberg as a post buy option, as maybe a guy to finish off your team. So yep. Corey Blackledge, any good defender picks other than Sinclair? Him and Tom Stewart for me, the two. I'm not a huge fan of Lloyd, Young, or Ryan. I don't think the top 6. And they're already priced pretty fairly. So for me, it's Sinclair and Stewart are the top 2 picks. If not, I'd be looking for another position if you can. OG Eagles, Wanganeen, Miller. He's been very good, hasn't he? But again, risky. He could be that player through the buys you could take a punt on. So I know Corey needs maybe a defender there, but it could be a Wanganeen Miller for a couple of weeks to make some cash. A little bit like the Ash play I did a few weeks ago, and can get you through the buys through 2 weeks. So I don't hate the idea of it. I just think that he's probably a bit expensive now. I probably wouldn't do it, but if you're keen, then feel free. Corey Blackledge, as you know, I don't have defender mid-swing if I get rid of Hunt. Yeah, that's right. So you could... Going a Hunt to Wanganeen Miller is not the worst. I've heard of worse trades. So you could just do that if you were keen on Wanganeen Miller. Scott Nelson, opinion on Walsh. Can't look terrible. The 55 last week was horrible. I know 91 this week. I think he'll be fine. He'll be cheap post-buy. I think he'll still be an option that we have to consider. So I wouldn't be jumping on him this week or next, obviously, the week after buy, but something to keep an eye on, I think. Porter Dennis went Jake Lloyd over Sinclair, and they decided to play him on a wing. I know, it was weird. So I wouldn't be trading Lloyd, obviously, but Sinclair's obviously good, but I don't know why. He played on a wing. He's not a winger. So I think Sydney just got their game plan completely wrong on Thursday night. I think that was just everything about it was wrong. Joel Fusco, does Will Day go this week? Again, it's team dependent, I think. If you can hold him and he helps you around 15, I would hold. He's still got the role. But if you need another defender this week and he can be one of the guys that can go, then I think you could trade. But it'd have to be to a Sinclair or Stewart for me. If you're going him to a Young or Luke Ryan or someone, I think it's just a waste. You've got to go to someone that's going to be a top 6 or very, very close, because Will Day is probably a guy that's in the mix. So it's got to be to Sinclair or Sicily. Sinclair or Stewart. I keep saying Sicily. It's all the S's that I keep mixing up. Very annoying. Porter Dennis, I reckon Longmire's just trying to screw me over, to be honest. Yeah, he probably is, unfortunately, there, Porter. But hopefully they get it right this week and Goulden goes back to his wing/mid, and hopefully Lloyd goes back in defence. Porter Dennis messed up Goulden as well. Yep, exactly right. So not too good there. So all right. Well, if that's all the questions, I reckon that's probably where we'll call anyway. But no, it's good. Hang on, we've got Jack Wilson. Who can I trade Sheasel out for in the forward line? Again, you're probably going for guys off their bye. So Brisbane, if you don't have Dunkley, but I assume you probably do have Dunkley there. Freo, or if you could you do Sheasel to Fife? If that's 300k, if you can go another rookie, another position up to a premium midfielder, that could be something that you could look at. Geelong, Jeremy Cameron, I'm not sold on, but if you want to take a punt through the buys, Jeremy Cameron's not the worst option. He's been pretty good. Gold Coast has no forwards. St Kilda, Sydney. No St Kilda forwards off the top of my head, and then Sydney forwards. If you don't have Goulden, but he's probably too expensive, I probably don't want to pay up. So it's interesting. OG Eagles, English on for a big score this week, very up and down. He hasn't been up and down this year. Just funny enough, happens to be the 2 weeks I've owned him. He's gone up and then down. So I hope so. I don't who's he even got this week. The Bulldogs have got North Melbourne. A tough matchup against Goldie, so might not be a good score coming up for him, but we'll have to see. Hopefully he does. Scott Nelson, do I trade Whitfield to Sinclair? Whitfield to Sinclair, I'm not sure. Whitfield's been doing pretty similar to Sinclair lately. If you need the number for next week, I'd wait till next week to do it, but you could. I'm just not sure though. I think Whitfield's been pretty good for the year. I think he's still averaging mid-90s, which is in around the top 6. So yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, there you go. All right, well, I'll call it a night there. But appreciate you guys tuning in as always and putting the questions through as well. And thanks to all those legends that tune into the Twitter space and then head over here. And then the ones that tuned in for the whole one on YouTube as well. And thanks as well for everyone that tuned in for the watch-alongs. We had a big weekend. We had a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night watch-along. So we'll be back, tomorrow for the my round review, going to my team. I'll say my plus and -3 again and stuff like that. We'll have a look at what we're going to be doing for this week. So I don't know what my trades are at the moment. And then we'll have the Wednesday trade talk as usual, and then smack bang into Thursday night footy again. So it's going to be a busy couple of days over here. So that'll be good. Looking forward to responding after a poor week. But yeah, if you did enjoy the video, make sure you leave a like on the stream. We'll try and aim for 50 likes on this stream. So we've had 40 odd people watching through the stream. So if everyone clicks like, we'll get close to 50, and hopefully we can hit 50 likes on here. So I'm just having a quick look. We've got 25, so we're halfway there. So if we can get more likes on that, that'd be very much appreciated. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, bottom right-hand corner. We're currently on 11:49. So if one more person can subscribe today and make it 11:50, that'd be fantastic. But we're 51 away from 1,200, so that'd be amazing if we could reach that goal soon. But appreciate all your support as always. Make sure you turn notifications on so you don't miss when I upload content or go live. Thanks, Scott Nelson, mate. Everyone liked the video. Thanks, mate. Mike, for not happy with my score this week. It's 1934. Everyone played so bad for me. Yep, I know. I feel that pain as well, mate. Jack Wilson, cheers, Bales. Thanks, Jack. Mike Purdy, cheers, Bales. Thanks, mate. And he said, go well. So thanks, mate. Appreciate that. But yeah, appreciate you guys all tuning in. Social media on the description below. Make sure you go and follow me across all those. And leave in the comments below who your plus -3 were, who your scores, and then what your trades are looking like, and any trade questions after the video if you've got that. But if that is all, I'll catch you guys in the next video tomorrow, which will be my own round review. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Make sure you go and follow AFL Fantasy Fanatics on Twitter as well, and follow on the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and give us a 5-star rating. And we haven't got any reviews yet. We've only got the one review. So if you want to leave a review and rating, then feel free. But hopefully we can, I'd plead for you. Can we have a 5-star, please? But that'd be good. But yeah, if you can. So thanks, guys. And yeah, chat to you guys tomorrow and throughout the week. So thanks, guys. Have a good week.